All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Schumacher, and I am the Northern Plains Regional Alternate for the North, or not the North Dakota, the Conservation Districts Employees Association. And this is our March webinar of the National Conservation Districts Employees Association Professional Development Series. We host a monthly webinar on the fourth Wednesday of every month. And this is open to all employees throughout the country. And all of our past recordings can be found on our website, the ncdea.us, and we have a little over a year worth of webinars currently up. So if anybody would like to take a look at those, you can find those on our website. Today, we're going to be talking about some different ways that we can share our success stories through our districts and utilizing social media. And I'm going to turn this over to Emmy Ingen. She is the heading up the communications and outreach position of the Okanagan Conservation District. And I will turn it over to Emmy. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so great. All right, so today I'm going to share a little bit about impactful outreach for districts. And I'm going to go over kind of what a communication person does, what communication and outreach is, and how to make it impactful. And then closing out with a checklist that has considerations for overcoming outreach barriers. And hopefully for some of the smaller districts or those who might not have a communication team or an outreach specific person, you would still be able to implement strong outreach efforts following that sort of checklist. So to get started, a little bit about me. So my name's Emmy Engel, and I am the communication lead with the Okanagan Conservation District in Washington State. Okanagan County, we are the biggest county in Washington, but we do have kind of a cluster of a lot of small rural communities, towns, and cities. We have just a little bit over 40,000 in our population. And so I was born and raised in Okanagan. I graduated in 2016, and we're really big in the sports community. So that was something that I found a passion in. And I went to college for track and field and kind of specialized in the javelin. And this was a big change because from coming from my small town, I went to the University of Washington in Seattle. And that was a great experience. And I ended up really learning that I loved communication. And through that coursework, I graduated in 2020. I got my BA in communication and a minor in nutrition. And then that was during COVID, and we got to get one more year for competing. And that kind of pushed me towards working on my master's. And so I moved a little closer to home, and I went to Eastern Washington University in Cheney. And I graduated in 2022 with my master's in communication studies. So after that, kind of moved back home, and I feel very lucky and grateful that I was able to find a job with our conservation district as a communication specialist. And so I've been there since 2022, and I've been loving it, and I'm now our communication lead. And a couple other hobbies that I enjoy, I'm also kind of an adjunct professor teaching part-time at our local community college, and I'm teaching interpersonal communication. And then I'm also assisting at our local high school for track and field. So those are a few fun things about me. So a little bit about what does a communication person do? I want to share a little bit about what I do with our outreach team. And we do have a team. There's one more person that's our official communication assistant, and she is amazing. She helps a lot with our social media and just all around with all of our outreach. And I have a little bit of, on the left top picture, we do some social media management. We usually just use kind of Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I also do website management, and I've built our website, and that's kind of our front door for hosting our information, a landing page that whenever we make handouts or make social posts, we try to redirect people back to our website. And then we do community events in that bottom left corner. We also have a few volunteers that have kind of been with us over the past year, and they've been a big help when it comes to bridging the capacity gap and helping out with those community events or just being an extra hand to help make materials. We also host a good amount of workshops and community meetings. And we also host field tours and try to show local projects to partners and neighboring conservation districts, policymakers. And we do that. We had a couple this year, but typically we try to do at least one of those a year. Okay. And I also want to share another side to this. And what does it mean to be a communication person or to have the communication and outreach person on your team? And I'm going to go through this kind of fast, but I just wanted to share these principles and really understanding the skill set and understanding that these communication kind of focused people bring to the team. And in communication studies, we learn a lot that communication is fast, it's ever present, it's irreversible, it's something that you can't take back. And this is kind of just the importance of communicating and knowing that the messages that we choose to share or the ones we don't, it says something about us and our organization. So it's important to keep all of these in mind. And we're always communicating, even if we are silent, that's sending a message. So your communication people are going to have this understanding and be able to help effectively work on outreach. So a little bit more with this is understanding these principles helps us really step into the shoes of others and those that we're trying to serve and shaping kind of how we see the world, but how we can see it from their perspective as well. And having this asset is going to help to enhance your district presence, ensuring that programs and services, they're not only just reaching people, but they're going to be really what people need and what your communities and the people we serve are looking for. How can we really help them and go for that funding or help them accomplish the projects that are going to meet their goals? So I wanted to talk about a couple pictures that you're going to see. The first one is here, and this is an example of kind of translating all of these principles and understanding to outreach and how we would conduct that. So in this first photo, this was the setting of we are working on a countywide project that we're developing a water bank. And this is kind of a big issue. Water can be a hot topic, and especially water availability. So we knew that we're speaking to an audience of agricultural users, also community members, and people that feel passionate about our water resources. So the goal here was that we wanted to host the diverse stakeholders, and we wanted to be able to really hear what are the concerns that you might have with this, what are the benefits you see with a water bank, and what are the needs. And we did this by really trying to be prepared in the beginning, opening up a survey, trying to get kind of those insights coming into it so we could maybe develop frequently asked questions and get the experts in the room for the questions that we were going to be asked. And this is just one type of audience where when we got everyone in the room, we were able to host an interactive kind of workshop. And we spent time at these tables. We had people sitting with maybe their friends at first or people that they came with. But in between, we made them intermix tables and go sit with somebody new. And I think that was a good way to really break the ice and get kind of outside of your own thinking and trying to hear the perspectives of others. And we actually got good insights from this. We had 3 rotations, and the first was, what are the benefits that you can see with a water bank? And maybe what are some concerns you have? And then what are the needs? And we tried to end on that positive note. And then another photo I want to show is just how we speak with maybe a different audience. And so in this example, this is me and a lot of kids, a few parents, and this was kind of a unique outreach event that we did this winter. And this shows that our community engagement effort, we haven't really been to some of these communities in the county, or we can't get there as often as we'd like. So we tried something new, and it was attending local basketball games. And we knew that the audience here, they're mostly going to be kids, they're going to be sports fans. It's not necessarily the place to kind of come out and try to push programs, but we wanted to let people know that we're available and we're a resource. So what we did is we developed a script that we could give to the announcers to read it over halftime. And we had materials ready if people came by and wanted to request those and just kind of talk about what is the conservation district, what do we do? And it was actually a really big success and it was fun. We got actually a few cooperators that we've worked with before came by and they thanked us for being there and kind of made a comment of, oh, it's really cool to see you here. I actually haven't made it over to the office, but I wanted to talk to you guys. So we were able to connect and be a resource in their community, meeting them where they were. And that was really cool. And maybe the next time, if we didn't necessarily like get a lot of signups for programs, people are going to be more familiar with us. And that was a big win on our end. And this is a little bit, we kind of hosted some fun activities to entertain the kids, entertain the audience, and we related it to basketball. So we did some face painting and we hosted a shooting contest and a musical chairs game. Okay, and now a little bit about communication and outreach and what does that look like in practice? So as we're developing our different materials, whether it's a social post, a handout, organizing a community meeting, how do we put ourselves in the shoes of those around us? And I have a few questions to consider as you're trying to tailor these materials to an audience or to a platform, but also always keeping in mind, what does that mean? So putting yourself in their shoes and thinking, do they understand the language we're using? And does this relate to their priorities and needs? So as a conservation district, we want to get our practices on the ground. We want to help our cooperators and find what they need, whether it's funding or resources. And our strong suit is that we can offer those resources and bring that knowledge back to our community, also the funding when it's there. And this is something we all know, but it's not necessarily what the audience knows. And sometimes they might have a different understanding. And we think maybe they know, but we really need to do our best to take control kind of that message and frame that so we know that they're understanding. So something I want to kind of make a point on is intentional and tailored efforts are going to be effective for engagement and outreach. So tailoring to our audience, a few of those questions to consider: who are you? If we're coming to somebody and offering a service, we're your local conservation district. But what does that mean? That means we're grassroots, we're in the community, we're non-regulatory, voluntary. And how can you help me? We offer technical assistance, we offer programs and resources, cost share, but we really want to drive home, what's the impact of this work? What does this mean and how can it help me? And why should I connect with you? And so another important thing here is defining the terms and examples. So if we want to say we're offering technical assistance, we have these programs, what does that mean exactly? If we're saying riparian programs, and someone might not know that that relates to them until we give an example of what someone did with that project. So showing those photo points and showing materials that show the before and after are always a good way to help kind of drive that point home and share with people the impact of the work, and they could see those results. And when we define terms, simple is best, but I do want to say it's also important to use that technical jargon and just make sure we're explaining what it means, because we do want to make that connection that when we do say cost share, we do say technical assistance, they know that that's the conservation district's language and they know how to access those resources and what that can mean. So making that connection. So here we have again kind of intentional and tailored efforts. That equals effective engagement. So we're not just making a social post, we're not just making a handout to make one and kind of leave it hanging. We really are being intentional with who we're speaking to and the purpose for that tool. A couple best practices for effective engagement. We want to get the word out and be consistent in our messaging. And this is something to consider both internally and externally. So externally, we are putting out the message in a handout on our website across these platforms, we want to use similar language and we want to direct people to somewhere where they can get connected. We don't want it to be a dead end. And on the internal side, is the district speaking consistently? Between staff and board members, partners, is everyone kind of on the same page? Are we calling programs different things? What's a good way to frame this so we can really drive home what we do and share that with the communities? Using and defining terms, really being able to connect the dots to learn and understand what that technical jargon means. If there's acronyms, breaking that down and giving examples. And being clear, understood, providing those project examples, sharing the story and results. And if it's okay with cooperators, that's a good place to start is, can we help share your story and what you did on your property? Can we share these photos and share maybe why you wanted to be involved? And that's a good way for people to kind of see our practices in action and what that can mean for them. And then a big one is just being available and staying connected. This is sometimes where our efforts can fall off, especially if we put a lot of time into making a handout, making a post, we get the engagement, and somebody messages us or calls us, and then we end up saying, oh, actually, we can't help you at this time. And if we just end the conversation there, then that's a big miss. And that's something that maybe instead we can be solution oriented. Even if the funding's not there now, if we can't help in the moment, can we add you to the communication list? And can we help maybe let you know about the next opportunity or stay tuned for other opportunities that arise? And that's a good way to just keep people connected and be able to help them in the future as well. And then being available is sometimes we can get that disconnect when telling people where to go to access information or to come and call us, but then if we don't actually get back to them, then we're not showing up or being available. So we want to be careful about over-promising, over-delivering, and just making sure that we're thorough with our efforts, that we're directing people to the right places. Okay, and then I'm going to go over for this final part is a few barriers and how we can overcome those kind of in a checklist. So barriers, we might say, okay, this all sounds great, but there's only one of me, or I don't have a communication team or even a communication person. So what can I do? And how can I help maybe fund this role or a partial role or just do this myself and find the time? So a few barriers, limited personnel, staffing, or training, limited time. There's other priorities right now. And so where can I start? And then the big one can be funding. There's no funding for outreach or there's no funding for that person. So what can I do? And a few solutions. This can be identifying where you're at, the goals that you have, and mapping out a plan. So maybe you can't get all the way to that end line now, but where can you start? And really just doing what you can with what you have. You can do your best to make your systems as effective as they can be, taking that time to prepare, maybe on the slower time or where you can find the time to do that, and then being able to capitalize on your efforts. And then with the funding, building in the funding where you can, and you'd be surprised if you can actually apply in those grants or in those sources and add in a little bit of an outreach component. And maybe that would help either fund a person or it would help fund the time for you or another team member to take on a little bit of that role. So going a little deeper into these three things, this is our checklist. And the first one is creating a game plan. So this first part is identifying the current outreach status. So where are we at? Do we have any kind of outreach plan? What does outreach look like for us? And why do we conduct outreach? And this is talking about if there's a plan we're following, maybe we make program handouts, we host presentations, workshops, youth education, tabling events, community meetings. And why do we do the outreach? Well, maybe that's because we want to announce a grant or a program. We want to share the project recap. We need photo points. It's educational, or maybe it's just a fun fact. And that's something that is a good mix to have, especially on social media, is we don't always just want to push programs, but we want to try to build relationships. And we could do that through this mix of different ways we conduct outreach. What mediums do we utilize to communicate with the public and how do we use them? So maybe we have a website, social channels, but maybe we also just have our phone and we ask people to call us. We have the physical handout. We have a quarterly newsletter, and we get things out on the radio, newspaper, whatever that looks like for you. And then really considering the capacity for outreach and really looking at our current status. Do we have the staffing and training? Do we have the funding? How about existing partnerships and volunteers? On the second half, this is now kind of working towards the goals and mapping out a plan. So what are our goals and who are we trying to reach? We have engagement goals and needs. Maybe there's program priorities and then specifically grant deliverables. And we have a big project, we need stakeholder involvement. So this all kind of helps determine our audience and who we're trying to reach, the program we're focusing on, or if it's kind of a larger message of just district awareness. And that helps us focus on specific users, like a specific area or community, agricultural users. Are we speaking to full-time landowners? Are we speaking to part-time landowners? Are we talking to somebody that's a recreational user, a partner? And what are their specific needs and priorities? How can we speak to them? And then considering our outreach mediums, how can we use those to accomplish our goals? What will be accomplished, how, when, and the best tool with a timeline. With that, if there's something of what will we be accomplishing? Do we need a social post? Do we need a mailer? We don't want to just put the time and energy into maybe a direct mailer and realize we don't actually have the funding to get that out to all these communities. And would a social post and boost it on Facebook be better? Or what's the best way to go about that? So really thinking through those tools. And then how can we accomplish these goals with our current capacity? Always just coming back to what can we do now? And this might mean kind of determining roles, working together as a team. Something that's been a big help on our end is we have a lot of planners that enjoy presentations, and they make the time to come out and be available to talk about the technical expertise. And that's something that then I could help organize a meeting, and we know that the planners will help get the partners in the room. And it's really a big team effort, and that's going to help things go by a lot more efficiently, but also help you map that out on a timeline, knowing how much time do I need to make sure everyone's on the same page and to get everyone onboarded with the project. Next is prioritizing efforts. So this is a big one of just using good time management and considering other priorities. Are there things that are conflicting? And if so, is this a priority now? Is it necessary? Is it needed? If it's not, if it is, you can kind of find where that fits in the timeline. And then you can set tangible goals that help you make progress on it. So a couple examples here is if it's an existing service, if it's a handout, maybe just attending an event and leveraging partnerships, that's going to be a lot easier to do. You're going to be working on a quicker timeline. But if it's something that you need to offer a new service or give a presentation, you need to host an event and build those new relationships and partnerships, that's going to take a lot more time. And so being able to determine how much time do I need to do this well, and to really build that relationship, not just kind of check the box of outreach. The next is it's a priority, you've determined this, so how do we handle this with our capacity? Who's available to help? Is there training needed? Sometimes you can collaborate, again, with team members, but also partners, contractors, volunteers. So where can you also help kind of connect there to help spread out that workload and increase your capacity? An example could be, we know that the county fair is coming up. There's been an outreach goal of we need X amount of handouts. We'd like new program handouts. Maybe right now is not the best time with our event coming up maybe next month. So what we're going to do is hold off for a few months. We're going to wait until our volunteers are out of school and they can help us make those handouts. So we're capitalizing on those efforts by just choosing the right time and then knowing when we're actually going to be maybe doing a bigger push for creating outreach materials. And we're trying to time that out. So we're really saving our energy and being able to work on that when the timing's right. And then securing funding. So we can only do so much. We can make our systems as effective as we can. We can be organized, but that's a great start. It's only going to get you so far. And really think big and ask for what you can and what is going to be appropriate, but also don't ask for just the minimum because you will get what you ask for. If you really want to build in an outreach person or an outreach team, you need to really make that space and try to find a way that's going to work best for your district and your needs. And don't be afraid to ask for something bigger. An example in here is that we have these certain funding sources and grants. We have a little bit of outreach built in, maybe to our forest health to be able to get interest in the program. Or we have some funding over in riparian to help get awareness of that work. But something we really need is an outreach plan or a community engagement plan. So maybe we're looking for a specific grant where we can apply to that. And that's going to build in our time, our funding, and allow us to spend the time to go make those new relationships or just be a resource. And then also come out with the deliverable of a community engagement plan. So that's something that you could work to build in as you've kind of set your goals and found what those priorities are. And then the very last kind of piece here is just about growing our impact. And this is a big example to just wrap it up. The Okanagan Conservation District, we recently worked on a really big project, and this is one of our biggest successes of 2024, is we partnered with our county and various partners to update the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And this is something that counties need to have to get certain sources of funding, especially federally. So if that disaster happens, this plan's in place and it's active. And our plan hadn't been updated since 2013. So this was something that we didn't want to just write a plan and update it. We really wanted that community engagement and buy-in. And we want this plan to be living and useful. So our goal was to get a lot of partner input and collaboration and also input from the community. And on this left side, you can kind of see the building of this effort. So a big thing was that we hosted community meetings. We didn't just do one, but we did 5, and we tried to spread it around the county so we could go to those communities as best as we could, and we could hear from everybody. And we allowed the time and space just for all partners to come to the room, for everyone to map out their priorities and what they saw as a value and what they saw as something that needed to be an action in this plan. And we ended up having a really great turnout. We had over 300 people attend the meetings altogether. We had over 100 partners that collaborated in this document, and overall 1,000 community members that had input through surveys and other digital sources and outreach, that they were able to get their voices heard and help develop the projects. And then kind of on the right, we see this was us sharing our story back to the newspapers and media and trying to just keep people involved in the update of the process and how it was going. And so we were able to update this plan. It's now published and was approved, and it's hosted on our website. So if anyone did have questions about projects or anything specific, you're always welcome to kind of visit that or ask questions towards the end. And that's all I have for kind of outreach and growing your impact.
Hey, thank you, Emmy. We do have a question in the question box, and it is, what platform did you use to build your website?
Yeah, so we just built our website on Wix.
Good platform. I'm working on one right now as well on Wix.
Awesome.
Yeah. Is there any other questions that you guys would like to ask? You can either put it in the question and answer box, or you can raise your hand. And if not right now, we will move into Jay Townsend. She is the Community Resilience Coordinator for the Thurston Conservation District. And she's going to be talking to us about a little bit more social media side of things. So go ahead, Jay, and let's get you set up. And if you guys have any questions in the meantime, while we get transferred over, please go ahead and either put them in the Q&A box or raise your hand, and then we can get those questions answered at the end here.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm just trying to get my sound here to work. For some reason, my option to share my sound is not working. So I do have some videos in my presentation. Let's see, maybe I can do this. Nope. Okay. We'll go ahead and share. My audio might not come through, so I apologize for that. It was working during our practice session, but the option to do it is no longer there. So I'll just work around it. Like that's what we do at conservation districts. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jay Townsend. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm the Community Resilience Coordinator for Thurston Conservation District in Olympia, Washington. And for the last 2 years, I've also been the social media manager. Thurston CD runs a Facebook page, we have an Instagram page, and we publish a monthly newsletter through MailChimp. We also utilize YouTube for things like our board meetings or webinars. And Facebook is an excellent platform for sharing events and sharing those events and educational materials in groups. Instagram is used more for storytelling along with our newsletter. We use each platform a little differently, and today I will primarily be talking about Instagram and our newsletter. But if you have questions about any of these platforms or anything that I'm going to talk about today, please put them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them at the end. So one tip right off the bat, I mentioned newsletters. If you do have a newsletter, maybe a quarterly or monthly newsletter that you spend time on and you have content in that newsletter that you're proud of, try to use that content in social media. We definitely want to, like Emmy said, kind of make sure our message is the same on each platform. So that's a really good way to get content on your social media just by using what's in your newsletter. I've included a QR code on this screen for you to follow along on Instagram, just because I wasn't sure about the audio coming through on my videos. So if my reels don't have sound, which I don't think they will, you can use the QR code on your phone to hop onto Instagram. I've pinned the reels that I'm going to be sharing today, so they're just right at the top for you to click on. Our handle is Thurston CD if you want to search for us on Instagram or Facebook. So a little about me. Before my time at TCD, I was an outreach coordinator for a couple of small nonprofits in Olympia, Washington. I've also been a copywriter, publishing newsletters for, you guessed it, nonprofits. Overall, I have about 5 years of media management experience for small organizations. In that time, I've learned that sharing your organization's story doesn't have to be super complicated or involve a ton of metrics and data. Rather, if you follow the guidelines that I'll be talking about today, you can grow your audience consistently rather than all at once. And that's a really good thing. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. First and foremost, it's important to understand your district's goals and growth capacity. I encourage all of you to speak with your management team about the goals of your district, 5 or 10 years from now. Are you planning on expanding? Do we have a plan to find funding? Once you've spoken to your leadership team about your district's growth and capacity, then you're really ready to get to work. So I hope everyone has been able to scan that QR code and check out our Instagram. I'm going to go ahead and move along here. Okay, so the first guideline is to really make sure that your content is accessible for everyone. Now, I'm not an expert in accessibility, but I did want to share a few things that I've learned to make your content accessible. I've included another QR code on my PowerPoint. This time it will direct you to a fantastic website from August Creative all about digital accessibility. They are the experts, so I encourage you to get your phone out, check out that website. But here's what I know and what I'd like to share with you. Be sure to add alt text to your images on your website and newsletter. Alt text is that alternative text that appears when an image doesn't load correctly or is read aloud when using a screen reader. We are working on adding alt text to all of our images on our website and in our newsletter right now. And it's a really great thing to have. It makes everything much more accessible. You also want to use high contrast colors in your outreach materials, you want to avoid things like greens over reds. You should aim for that high contrast. And remember to use headers on your website or in your newsletter. H1 or header 1 should always be used first. Then you want to use H2 and H3. This is helpful for people who use screen readers because the reader will identify these headers in order that they appear and allow you to skip through sections easily. So the next guideline is one of the most important. Knowing your audience is everything. If you have an audience of mostly farmers on your maybe Instagram or Facebook, and you're posting about how to container garden on a balcony in an apartment, do you think that audience is going to resonate with your content? I mean, maybe, but probably not. So here are some snips of our monthly newsletter that I just mentioned. And it's a great example of how we captivate different audiences with our emails. Particularly, we have a huge interest in our Native Plant Festival and Sale. And in 2025, just earlier this month, for our 25th annual sale, we had t-shirts made using graphics that we had designed by a local marketing firm. I also developed a content calendar posted weekly about plant sale using fun graphics, memes, and reels, which I'll show you in a little bit. We also put $50 on an ad on Facebook, which, you know, $50 might not be that much, but it really, we saw over 3,000 responses on our Facebook event. And in total, 1,700 people came through on March 1st during the sale. So we saw 500 more attendees at this year's plant sale than in 2024. And I credit our marketing plan and our relationship that we have to our audience. And like I said earlier, I'll be sharing a couple examples of what we posted so you can kind of see. But this is what we put in our newsletter. And then this on the right here is the graphic that we use to advertise the t-shirts on social media and in our newsletter. Here are a couple more snips from our newsletter. We always include upcoming events, news from our K through 12 education department, South Sound Green, and events in our community, as you can see on the right side of your screen. On social media, it's a good idea to have a target demographic for every post. You want every post to go to a particular demographic. But in the newsletter, it can be much more broad. We've had many compliments on our newsletter, and people say they actually read them, which is great. They're not just sitting in someone's inbox. And this gives people a reason to check out our newsletter, whether they're interested in volunteering, education, restoration, agriculture, wildfire prep, or another area of conservation. So I really love our newsletter. I think newsletters can be very impactful for the community. So how do you get to know your audience? First, you need to know who they are. I mentioned in the beginning that success in sharing your story doesn't have to involve a bunch of complicated metrics, but you do need to gather some data in order to know your audience, be successful. Using these simple metrics, engagement, followers versus non-followers, active times, and demographics can help you gain an understanding of who might be responding to your posts and when. In the beginning, as you grow your audience, active times can be really helpful. If your audience is most active around 9 a.m., go ahead and schedule your post for 9 a.m. But as you get bigger, as you grow your audience, there's much less need to worry about when your followers will be online. If you've done the legwork of understanding what your audience wants to see, your post will perform well enough to reach everyone regardless of the time that you post it. So if you post on Tuesday, maybe at like 3 p.m., as long as you're getting those initial responses, the algorithm's going to pick up your post and push it out to multiple people. So people on Wednesday, if you post on Tuesday, people on Wednesday will still see your post. So that's something important to keep in mind. You know, in the beginning, think about active times, but as you grow, it becomes less of a worry. Another guideline is to include a beginning, middle, and end to all of your content. These two reels on the example slide here were created after two hedgerow installation projects on local farms, and our community had a really positive response to these projects. So I'm gonna play these videos. I don't think the sound's gonna come through, but we're gonna just see the video itself. So hold on one second. Okay, and another one, very similar. Okay, so you can see that these are very simple before and after videos, but they do a great job of explaining the process of the project, and that's what people really want to see. They don't want to see the finished product. They want to see how we got there, the work that it took to get there, and that's a much more impactful story. In your posts, you'll also want to build a character to elicit an emotional response from your audience. You want them to see a face and develop a relationship with your characters. So how do we do this? I'm going to play these videos. These are also on our Instagram. So if you click the QR code in the beginning of the slideshow, you can see them right at the top. But here, I'll play them real quick. Let's go to the next one. Sorry, folks. I think my my videos aren't coming through as well as I thought they would. So we're gonna go ahead and skip to the next one. But for the build a character guideline, I do want to just reiterate that it's important to show a face. You want to utilize staff in photos and videos, and you want to make it fun and relatable. So I really encourage you to check out our Instagram and see these videos in person. Every once in a while, you'll also want to zoom out of your targeted posts and explain the why. Why are we doing this work? Why does it matter? How did we do it in the past? These are all great questions to answer in your content. And a simple way to do this is to use drone footage to create a simple reel with a meaningful caption. So I will play this one. It's very short. So here's the drone footage. Okay, and you can see in the slide, we have these kind of longer captions. The first one says, Thurston Conservation District may be 75 years old, but we're simply a drop in the bucket of environmental stewardship. So we are zooming out. We're kind of talking about the history of the district, what kind of impact our work has on the environment, and how people can contribute to conservation. Using conversational colloquial language has really worked for us at TCD. Like Emmy mentioned, no one wants to be scrolling on their phone to just stop and read a bunch of technical jargon that they might not understand. Make sure you're explaining technical vocabulary in your posts, things like, riparian buffer or technical assistance. People like to scroll to relax, engage with the community, and feel connected, so we really want to meet them where they're at. So make sure you're having fun with it. This is one of the memes that I posted for Plant Sale. This photo is taken at our Harvest Festival. So using content from other events, reusing things is a great idea to save time and energy and money. So yeah, let's move on to the next one here. Don't forget to have fun with your characters and always include a call to action in some form or another. Here, we're asking folks to pre-order their plants or attend the festival. This is actually one of my favorite memes that we made because I just think it's a great job. The gesture that Sam is doing in the photo is just wonderful. He's speaking at another event that we had, and I snapped this picture and I just saw an opportunity and I took it. So make sure you're keeping things in mind like that, and making sure you're just having fun with it is going to get you a long way. So have fun with your niche. This is one of my first, we call them kind of campy posts because they're a little extra and fun. This is when I first started back in 2023. Not every post that you make is going to go viral, and that's a good thing. You don't want things to blow up immediately. The goal here is to create gradual, consistent growth Otherwise, you may be inundated with technical assistance requests and unable to fill them at your current capacity. If folks aren't served in a timely manner, they might be turned off from your organization altogether. So we really want to make sure that we are aligned with our growth capacity. Okay, so that's the end of my slideshow. If folks have questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Here's my contact information. You can always email me at jtownsend@thurstoncd.com. Our socials are at ThurstonCD or our website, thurstoncd.com. And I'll turn it over to Kelly. Thank you all so much for listening, and I apologize again about my videos.
Yes, thank you, Jay. We do have a question. Do you have any opinions or suggestions on using paid advertising, Facebook or more traditional media? Oh, you're muted.
It popped up right when you said that. That's a great question. We typically use Facebook for advertising. We found a lot of success in using Facebook events and posting those events into relevant groups. Like we have gardening groups, so we post native plant sale into that group. And then we boost that post on Facebook, maybe $50 to $100. We also have had paid advertising in radio, newspaper. Radio tends to be successful for us just because we have a lot of rural residents that rely on radio and newspaper. So if we need to send a message out to them, then we will use radio or newspaper, but typically we use Facebook. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you, Jay. That was excellent. Some really good information. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay. If not, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Emmy. This was fantastic. For those of you that are on, you can find a recording of this on our National Employees Association website, and all of the other recordings are on there as well. So take a look at those, and thank you guys for joining us. We'll do another one in April on the 4th Wednesday of the month, and we look forward to seeing you guys then. Thank you.